Thank you very much for your delightful introduction to my book, which has been published in English as well, also in Dutch. It's called Eurpean Mandarin. So, ladies and gentlemen, recently the President of the European Commission, Mr. Manuel Barroso, compared the European Union to an empire. He said, and I quote, "Europe has the dimension of an empire, a non-imperial empire." Unsurprisingly, his words were followed by an outcry of critics who prompted to say that the European Union had finally showed its real face. It was an ever-growing entity of unelected officials, a behemoth of an organization trying to incorporate states and deprive them of their sovereignty. Is the European Union the new Rome, subjecting innocent peoples on the European continent and beyond? In essence, in my view, Mr. Barroso was right. The European Union has the characteristics of an empire, but its nature differs from major global powers which we have known in the past, like the Roman and the British empires. There are three main differences. Now something should happen here. I ask for technical assistance. First of all, talks about the differences between the European Union and the Roman Empire and the British Empire. So unlike Rome, the European Union enlarges by negotiation and consent. The European Union has shifted from Brussels to the north, south and the east of the European continent, not by conquest but by voluntary accession. Not one single country has been forced to join the European Union. On the contrary, I would say. Most of them knocked relentlessly on the door of the waiting room of full membership, and many still do. In this sense, it is indeed a non-imperial empire. And secondly, the European Union is also an empire without an emperor. There are so many presidents in Brussels that in fact there is no real sheriff in town. There is the presidency of the Council of Member States, there is the President of the Commission, there is the President of the European Parliament, there are presidents of innumerable agencies, committees and watchdogs. They all want to be called and addressed as a president, Monsieur le Président. And on top, there's even going to be a president of Europe. The Chinese Empire used to have emperors who were either too young to rule or who were too old and absent-minded to maintain clout over their vast territories. Most of the European presidential figureheads are middle-aged men, but there are so many of them that not a single one is really in charge. And the third difference, ladies and gentlemen, is that Rome dictated Roman law to the subjects of its empire, stretching over the whole continent. The British imposed a governmental, administrative and judicial system which is still in place in most of its former colonies. The European Union administers its empire by distant rule. It produces rules and directives which have to be transformed into national law by national legislators. Only regulations and decisions are directly applicable in the member states. And furthermore, representatives of member states exert strongly felt influence on the legislative machinery in Brussels. So, in fact, there is neither a dictate nor an imposition. The European Union has neither an army nor a police to enforce legislation. And yet it has produced more impact, even in the far-flung areas of the continent, than the German, French and the Russian army combined. Most of our legislation today is made in Europe. It affects most aspects of our daily life, from the safety of household appliances to pharmaceutical products, and to the world of traveling. The power of the European Empire consists of paper, but it is not the paper tiger Mao once mocked at. So Mr. Barroso should not feel ashamed for his words. He was perfectly right, in fact. The European Union is not imperial. It has no emperor, and it is not even imperialistic. And yet, it is an empire. It is an empire of grand designs and good intentions, upheld by Mandarins through distant rule. But there is one systemic shortcoming in this empire. It is disconnected from the average citizen. Now, for more than 7 years, as the President told in his introduction, I was a humble servant in this empire, working at the heart of the policy-making center, the European Commission. And during this period, I learned and gradually came to understand how the work of European Mandarins can affect the lives of millions of people, both for good and for ill. To outsiders, the European Commission seems to be a monolithic block, issuing directives, regulations and decisions from its headquarters in sheer unanimity. However, experience taught me that the concrete pillars on which the headquarters is built are all that is monolithic about the Commission. The administration of the European Empire is a world of open doors, closed doors, side doors, back doors, revolving doors, and even trap doors. In Brussels, the truth is never absolute, and intrigue is, as in any bureaucracy, an indispensable tool of survival. And over the years, I have seen, admired, experienced, and undergone many of the plans, projects, directives, guidelines, and regulations as devised by the administration of the European Empire. Most of them I supported, and some of them were superfluous, and only a few I abhorred as unnecessary and counterproductive. I believe that a law that is not needed should not be made. And I arrived in Brussels with a bushel of ideals, and I left with a small handful of practical insights. I first set foot in the headquarters of the Empire in 1984 on the 11th floor. And I departed earlier this year as a full-fledged European Mandarin of the 12th floor. So, notwithstanding a limited promotion of just one floor in 23 years, I mastered the necessary technique of intrigue, trickery, and deceit, without which the Mandarin cannot hope to survive. In Europe, as in other areas of government, hypocrisy is the father of all victories, while naivety is the mother of all defeats. It does not really matter whether you are a European Mandarin, a minister in the government, or a member of the press corps. A process of power and politics is driven by hidden agendas, faked emotions, and insincere actions. So if you have to cheat, do it with a smile. And in the European Commission, a Mandarin will encounter these features in abundance. As a result, the Commission is a living compromise between Northern rigidity and Latin flexibility, between Protestant right-mindedness and Catholic artfulness, between the late sleepers of the Mediterranean South and the early risers of the frozen East. Mandarins are not chest-poking, noisy officials, but soft-spoken, friendly, courteous. Their demeanor is composed and dignified. Small countries speak unassumingly, whereas bigger nations are prone to display the glory that once made them a world power. Poland is currently